everybody. Strat here. We're going to be dealing with a lot of very heavy topics in this video, and I want to let you know that ahead of time. You see, I don't want any of you to walk away from this with nightmares, because I know how fragile some of you can be, you know? I know that some of you are a little high-strung, a little anxious, maybe a little stressed out, a little triggered, and I respect that. I really do. The question is, are you stoic enough to handle it? Huh? Are you strong enough to hang in there and watch, even when things get heavy? I think you can. But let us first lay some groundwork. Let us speak of interpretation.
We're a little more progressive and ahead of the curve here in San Francisco.
Interpretation. It's a word guys like me invoke whenever they think that the author's opinion doesn't matter anymore. Every now and then a game comes along that is told in such a subtle way that interpretation is the only way to truly understand it. Your interpretation could be personal, embarrassing because it makes you feel emotions and stuff. I'm not an authority on what the writer, director, and devs were trying to say with this game. I'm not in their brain or watching from their closet, regardless of what the police report says. But I will be wringing every last bit of juice from this game until it's a dry rag. And it may seem lazy to approach it this way, and in response, I would tell you to shut the hell up. See, there's this idea that I subscribe to that I think works pretty well for me. It helps me enjoy the media I'm consuming more, because the canon in my head is so much more enticing than anything a writer or a movie director could possibly communicate. That's because my interpretation is just that. It's mine, uniquely mine, tailored to my specific tastes. Now, some people hate this kind of thing, and I understand. You want to know what the author meant, and I can respect that. The thing is, I don't do that. And in this video, I want you to put that aside for now. I think that you're more than capable of coming up with your own meanings. So, why are you here then? And I'll tell you why. Sometimes there's just moments where no matter how hard you try, you just can't put the threads together. That's why I find videos like this very helpful, because it can help you understand your own headcanon even better. So, you're entitled to your interpretation, and I'm entitled to mine. And I want to hear what you thought all this stuff meant, so make sure you leave a pretty detailed comment below and tell us all your interpretation. Anything can inspire mystery so long as it makes the audience ask a question. And so long as the answer is withheld, the question will remain, gnawing at the back of your mind. Mystery is what keeps watchers watching, readers reading, and gamers harassing people online. We want to know what'll happen, why it happened, how it happened, and if it'll happen again. Sort of like sex, except I'm having it. I'm going to explain how this game is able to handle so many complex themes without fumbling the ball. Now, this game has an identity. It's clear from the very start that the writer knew exactly what they were trying to say. And what's more, the director was able to translate that vision flawlessly, even without words. Just images. Simply images. Moving images. Some would say like a movie. The intro cinematic is deceptively good. It does a lot of things right, and it does it in a very subtle way. Now, you might be looking at this and you might be asking yourself, why? Why did they linger on this guy's back for so long? And that's because this song playing in the background, it's taken us somewhere. You can't be like my kids in the back seat asking mommy if we're there yet. You gotta be patient because we're going for a ride. And discovery is our destination. And I have no idea when we're gonna get there, so stop asking. The camera shifts focus every now and then to communicate where words are too awkward to work. The music reinforces the message, and the pacing of the scene is methodical. It gives you a chance to take everything in. Anticipation is building now, and just before the reveal, the focus rips away, and there, In the distance is a number glowing in the sky. And then we see what Gustav was staring at. A bright red flower. It's such a simple object, but that's why it works. Because it's a flower, we're like, what's the significance of that simple thing? You know, what is this flower for, and why is it so significant to this guy Gustav? And just to make sure we didn't miss it, they put it in a spotlight. It seems heavy-handed, but you gotta admit, it's impressive how well they know their audience. The mystery is the flower. So why is it significant to this handsome fella? The mystery nibbles at our brains because the game isn't in a hurry to explain it. It's not rushing to tell you the origin of things. Hello, welcome to the Empire. How can I help you have a wonderful day? Name your people, please.
I don't have people.
Okay, sir, but I need something to put in the space or I can't continue.
I'm alone.
Sir! I can't continue without a name. Can you just tell me a name?
Hot.
Alright, you know what? I got it. I got a perfect idea. We're gonna make something up, okay? Alright? Okay, I got it. Your new name is Han D. Cap. Your name is now Handicap. You got it? You good? You like it? You're welcome? Great. Have a great day and thank you for using the Empire. Next! Tarantino calls this stretching the rubber band. You keep stretching the scene until there's no more give and it's about to snap. You want to keep the mystery going for as long as you can. Answering the scene's mystery is relieving the tension. Mystery and tension forces attention. And they took their time getting to where they were getting. And that's to be admired. Because it takes patience, both on the part of the director and the viewer, to communicate without words. You need attention on both sides of the fence. But don't get too attached to these people, because one of these people is going to Ned Stark you by the end of the game. The game introduces you to the villain, for now, the Paintress.
Have you tried throwing with your other arm instead? If you could hit the Paintress directly, that would actually be useful.
But we don't know anything about her at this point. She's just some chick painting numbers in the sky. So now we got a new question for the list. Right below why flower, we got who is lady. All the writer did was show restraint here. It would have been easier to spend 30 minutes spouting exposition about the world. It would have told us everything we needed to know, but that would ruin the mystery. Instead, we got 30 minutes of personal character exposition, and we learned about the world through its character struggles.
I'm enjoying the uselessness of today and readying my usefulness for tomorrow.
And soon, I'll get to do a lot more than throw rocks.
This comment frames the state of things in Lumiere, which is the city that the game takes place in. For anyone aged 34, today is inevitable. There's no escaping the great ERASINING. It'll happen regardless of what anybody does now, so all that's left to do is enjoy today, because it's the last time that they're going to get to see their loved ones. Normally a story like this would feel grim, depressing, but instead it's uplifting. Not just because of the excellent music, but also the character dynamics.
And soon, I'll get to do a lot more than throw rocks.
That's what all the other expeditions said.
Hey, you know they gave their lives to lay the trail for us, right?
Gustav wants something. He wants to end this cycle of death, and MAE wants the same thing, but is antagonistic to Gustav's upbeat traditionalism. Gustav is the guy in the allegory of the dragon who, instead of being content to send old people off to get eaten, decides to figure out how to kill it instead. And MAE thinks it's useless to even try. Which begs the question, why is she joining the expedition in the first place? Isn't that just suicide by circumstance? These two come into conflict, as people often do, by disagreeing about politics. But we get the feeling that these two are good enough friends to not let a disagreement get in the way. Because while they may not agree with one another, they still respect one another, and they give each other the benefit of the doubt. It gives a push-pull dynamic to the relationship. And the story keeps from lingering too long on the sad bits by showing both hope and hopelessness.
You do that, we both die.
Each archetype is embodied by these two characters, and because they want the same thing but have different views on how to get it, they come into conflict. And now we got a new question. Why is MAE-MAE such a sad little goth ginger girl? As you walk on the rooftops, you'll get a glimpse of the excellent world building in this game. You'll pass hydroponic gardens, wind generators that are being repaired with scrap. Artifacts of the old world exist in stasis while time marches on for the people at an accelerated rate. All things approach entropy, but what we've made will linger long after we've passed on. And it's one of the central themes in the game. What do we leave behind?
It's nice to know something of us will remain in the world after today.
I'm not sure how to start. After 4 years apart, what do I say to her on the day of her gamage?
And then we hear a new word, gommage. I like how I could say even French words like an Italian. Gommage. Hey ma, where was the gommage? What does gommage mean, and why is this dude having such trouble with it? This game is slick with this sometimes. It hides the obviousness of its story behind French words that no one knows the meaning of, but they didn't count on one thing. I have Google. Gommage means exfoliate. It also means erase, but I'm gonna stick with exfoliate. You see all these people right here? They had their lives exfoliated. The mystery is slowly building up a list of questions, which, if the question is compelling enough, will grab the player and not let go. It reminds me of my first time playing Final Fantasy VII. I asked myself, who are these bad dudes blowing up this reactor? While in Clair Obscur, I get this wet stuff coming out of the clitoris right here in my eye. Now take a notice of this world building right here. He doesn't just have a flower for Sophie, but flowers here are obviously very important to these people. I mean, first of all, they grow an insane amount of them. They are quite literally everywhere in this game. And when people die, they turn into petals. Why? I don't know. Another mystery for the list. They spend precious water on them that could have been used to grow food or flush my duties. They do this even though flowers don't really offer anything of value. I mean, unless you value beauty, which, like, whatever, man. After following MAE-MAE for a bit, we get our first tutorial and our first taste of the excellent combat. Now, before you say anything, I know the combat is turn-based, but don't brush it off for that reason. I know it's hard to believe, but Expedition manages to make turn-based combat fun and addicting, and we owe it all to one thing. The combat rewards you for skill, precision, and tactics, and therefore, the player will chase mastery for the most optimal experience. The combat is a lot like Super Mario RPG, but the twist is, it's also Sekiro. You have 4 options in combat: a basic attack, which the game calls a base attack, which isn't confusing at all. You also got a shooting mechanic where you aim your gun and shoot, just like in real life. You have a whole list of skills that you can use and 6 skill slots to equip them in. You purchase these skills on a skill tree and blah blah blah, you know the rest, you've done this before. By the end of the game, you'll basically have every skill in the tree, and you can respec your character with an abundant consumable called a recode. And because respeccing is easy, the player is more likely to experiment with non-obvious builds, bringing out the player's curiosity and creativity. But where's the mystery, you might be asking? Well, it's right here. Right here. Why are all these skills locked? I don't know. Put it on the list, Al! It's like the game equivalent of a Russian nesting doll. Each mechanic is hiding another mechanic inside it. And just when you think, no way, she's way too small to fit that inside of her, life finds a way. Each skill has a specific use that interacts with each character's unique combat mechanic. For instance, Gustav has a prosthetic arm. It's not just good for surfing the internet one-handed, it also deep fries enemies by injecting them with lethal doses of electricity. That thing stores up energy every time you hit an enemy with your base attack or a skill that specifically states that it stores energy. And it increases for each melee hit, which means you can use skills that have multiple hits to build your meter even faster. You can release that energy with an attack whose damage scales with the energy level. And I know this seems like I'm stretching a bit here, but trust me, I'm not. It all makes sense if you convince yourself that you're always right. Each character's mechanic inspires mystery. My mind immediately went to, how can I build Gustav so he can use that on turn 1? I wonder if there's a weapon or an item that I can use to do that. You start building your character in your mind, and that gets you invested. The thought that one day your build will truly be finished and you can finally rest. But you can't use these skills without action points, and you regenerate those by using your base attack, using an item called an energy tint, or using a specific skill, or by parrying. Yes, parrying. That skill you never use in FromSoft games is here, and it's even more powerful than it was in Sekiro. You have a short window to hit the parry button, and if you succeed, you avoid all the damage and regen 1 AP. Now, parrying is a very rewarding way to play these types of games, but it is often neglected because mastering it is difficult, and rolling is far more forgiving. There's also a dodge roll, which has a longer window for success and has 2 states, a perfect dodge and a regular dodge. Both keep you from getting hit, but a perfect dodge can combo with Pictos to regain AP and has the same timing as a parry, but without a chance to counterattack. So what the devs seem to have wanted to do was to ease the player into the parry system by giving them an easier way to defend while they learn the enemy's patterns. Then, when the player gets the timing down well enough to get these perfect dodges, then they can start using the more difficult but much more rewarding parry.
The last few days meant everything.
Can we talk?
Gustav.
Gustav is a big scaredy boy because he and this girl broke up a while back over her not accepting his delivery of baby batter. So they obviously still have a thing for one another, and the baby making thing was just the problem pushing them apart. They still have feelings for one another, and in fact, it's probably love. And do you know what this dummy does? He waits until the day she dies to tell her how he feels. My brother in Christ, this is the most French girl on the planet. How did you fumble this, dog? As we continue on, these themes are expanded on.
Your flowers? I didn't know about. I thought you were younger. And yet you didn't have children.
I'm not having this conversation with you again. Not today.
Do you care so little about the future of Lumiere? How can you be so selfish?
And Sophie's like, oh, for real? Well, your kid's about to be an orphan, so maybe instead of talking all that good shit, you should go be a good parent for once so she knows what one looks like before you die. The game is answering all the mysteries about this girl Sophie because the time is coming when her character's gonna go, oh, bye-bye. So the game is attempting to answer at least one of the many mysteries, but not all of them. You see, the answers will slowly roll out, and just when one mystery is solved, another one is introduced. It's one of the main reasons it gripped me so tightly in its talons. And it's how I imagine it grips most people, but for different reasons. I mean, some might play through this just to see how they can push their build, or to solve one of the many mysteries that manage to grip them. Mystery and tension, again, forces attention. Let's move on to talk about what is perhaps the most important aspect of this game.
Gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying. And this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying.
In keeping with the theme of this video, there's a second way in which Expedition tells its story, through world building. Have you ever been watching a cutscene where 2 anime characters are talking to one another and telling each other shit they already know? It feels so unnatural because that information isn't really for the characters, it's for your benefit. The characters might as well have stared into the camera and said, hey, did you get all that? You want me to say it again? In this section, I will make the case for the world building of Expedition 33 and the phenomena of undertelling stories. Because I think it's an interesting sea change for games narratives. I think the most obvious example of this type of storytelling is found in FromSoft games. Those games tell you just enough to give you the vibes, and gives far more detail to those who search for it. And Expedition does this extremely well, so let's explore the imaginative and exciting world of player headcanon. In other words, the mystery of Hal. Let's think a little more about this premise, shall we? When the number in the sky changes, the previous age group dies. So after the fracture, as the game calls it, there would have been a time where no one knew what was happening. Reports would slowly circulate that the few 100-year-olds left were disappearing from their various hospital beds, leaving behind dust instead of their normal stains. It would have taken time for people to put it together, but not to mention there's going to be a certain population of people who don't even believe any of this is happening. And don't forget about the not caring crowd. Oh, there's a lot of people that don't care. I mean, there would be a large section of the population that would have been just like, whatever, man, I'm sure they got people working on that. And that's evidenced actually by the fact that both the characters, Mael and Gustav, acknowledge that there's not a whole lot of people signing up for these expeditions anymore. First expedition, Expedition 0, was a search and rescue mission. No one knew what was going on because this all happened after their world blew up, which is an apt analogy for what actually happened. After the number in the sky changed for the first time and enough people had died, then they would start taking expeditions to find the lady who paints the sky and ask her why. At the spry old age of 100, you can see how some people might have actually seen those deaths as a mercy, maybe even a blessing. But in time, people would realize that apathy would erase everything they love and have ever known. Remember, they spent 67 years surviving, existing in a routine in this new world before Expedition 33. And people are generally incurious when there's no reason to be otherwise. Complacency is why societies eventually stagnate. Imagine what it was like to see expeditions fail year after year, watching as whole generations of people just evaporated.
Why does Manon keep saying, death comes to us all?
You haven't heard that before?
No.
Unofficial expedition motto. You never heard Lucien say it either. It's one of his favorites.
I think he prefers, we're already dead, you're just catching up.
For every 1 year that goes by, these people were aging by 2. So what was the psyche of these people like? What did this do to society, losing so many people? So many sources of generational knowledge? And did technology fall apart? What do people do with the few years they have left? See, all these questions are mysteries in and of themselves. They add to our list of questions, and the more of these world-building questions the game answers, the more our headcanon dissolves away. That's what world building does. It creates questions, a world unfurling in your head. But there is such a thing as telling too much. When we lack information, our minds start filling in the gaps. When a concept is so strong that when you think of it, an entire world starts forming in your head, that's when, as a writer, you know you have something. That's why it's important to ask these kind of questions. Because depending on the questions and answers you come up with, your experience is going to be completely different from mine. I mean, your ideology usually influences how you experience media. And Clair Obscur does something that I think is just so damn brilliant that I'm stealing this idea for my own. Instead of telling your headcanon that it's wrong and undoing all of your hard work, Expedition 33 hides that information in optional side content. If you're curious about the story, you could pursue learning more about it, and if you're not, you don't have to. It's kind of brilliant in a way, and I think this is a great way to inspire player curiosity. And when you do this, the information that you reward the player with is no longer something that is just simply destroying my headcanon. It's a reward for my hard work, and it changes my perspective on it. I looked forward to spoiling my headcanon because I was being rewarded for it. And these questions that we have are all questions from the stuff that we don't know. What about the stuff we do know? The very first year of the expedition was Monolith Year 100, and then there's no more expeditions until year 84. The expeditions didn't continue, because Zero Expedition is the only expedition to have surviving members. And imagine the crazy, insane in the membrane stuff that they were telling people. And that likely stopped everything in its tracks. No more expeditions until we're prepared to fight these things. But let's circle back around to that whole baby making thing.
Men. Fucking pathological. You are not in charge.
What is our societal contract with one another? Do we have one? Sure, Sartre said that we all come into the world without a purpose, but I say we do. To carry on the social contract. To ensure that we, the collective, survives. You remember this lady? Her contention was that Sophie was selfish because she didn't want to pump out some units for liberty, equality, and fraternity. But is she? Let's examine the politics of raw dogging it in the apocalyptic future. Now let's say that Sophie and Gustave actually wanted to mush and have kids at the ripe old age of 24. That means they would both be dead before their child is 11 years old. And I don't know if you remember being 11 years old, but I was dumb as shit at that age. They'd end up in an orphanage, then foster care, and then go straight to being homeless. This is how society dies, however, when that societal compact is forgotten and the crisis of non-existence hovers overhead. You either act or you give in to despair. Generational knowledge of elders dies off. There's less and less people having kids who grow into adults to replace them. There's no one to pass that generational knowledge off to, so that knowledge dies. Some of these people would be master craftsmen, and when they die, they'll be taking that knowledge with them. All that expertise and skill lost. This would have profound effects on the younger generations. Having to see their grandparents die, seeing their parents die, and to see the end coming for them at such an accelerated rate, you see, it kind of puts education in a different light, doesn't it? It's almost like without education, society would fall backwards and crack its head open on the pavement. And once the 20-year-olds completely die off, society would start to backslide into a primitive state. The last child would die from starvation. Oh, it's all very grim. So Sophie's right as far as I'm concerned. What is the point of having children when at a certain point they're all doomed to die? Or worse. Once you get closer to that deadline, hopelessness starts taking over. And eventually, all expeditions will stop. On the flip side, however, if everyone just stopped having kids and all felt the way Sophie did, then humanity would have ceased to be at year 50. That is actually completely fucking true. That would accelerate the pace at which society dies. So Sophie, while being technically right, which we all know is the best kind of right, is also being selfish. While everyone else is making the difficult decisions and fighting to survive, she's out there doing who knows what with who knows who, having a great time and not caring what happens to the future. She has a screw it all type attitude. We actually get to see both sides of the argument with the orphans running around the city before the Gamage. They exist, they don't talk about existing, but because they're around and in our face, our mind is putting together the rest of the puzzle pieces. It's a way that this game communicates without words. And it's how they tell both sides of this complex story without seeming like they're hitting you over the head with it. It doesn't draw attention to itself, and it trusts the player to figure out the ambiguous parts for themselves. It's refreshing to see it done at all, let alone done this well. But what about that contract? Why is it a contract in the first place? Why is it important to have kids if the future seems predetermined? Because you're giving birth to the next generation of thinkers. People who can be imprinted with the values that bring society forward instead of holding it back. And in reality, every child has the chance of being the difference between society dying and curing it of its greatest ills. Or they might just end up collecting unemployment, but regardless of what could be, you gotta roll them dice. Otherwise, it can mean the end of the world. So in a way, I guess what I'm saying is, we all gotta start pumping out those units if we're gonna keep society going. Are you doing your part?
I'm doing my part.
Noise. I've always seen art as a reflection of what was going on in society at the time. It's difficult to separate your feelings from the work when your art is more than a job for you. In art, we mark time in decades, as these art movements take time to evolve. But in my opinion, art cannot help but be influenced by our collective emotions and struggles. Hell, even Dilbert comics were inspired by something. Perhaps not that deep as something, but something nonetheless. Art makes you ask, what did those people in that particular time deal with? What challenges did they face and did they overcome them? There's a story to art. Sometimes it's abstracted, sometimes it's obvious, but there's almost always a message. Well, okay, I guess I mean good art.
You should have gone for the head.
In order to talk about and have you understand the buried lore and discussions that we're going to be having, we need to cover the story. If you haven't played yet, this is your final warning. When I first met the sewing teacher, Richard, I figured he was going to be a rival to Gustav in competition for Sophie. Game stories and hell, even movies do this. It's an easy way to draw focus away from people's phones when you introduce some sort of conflict. The thing is, this game resists that. In spite of everything, you'll find that some people are actually quite hopeful, which says something about how being near the end of your life changes you. It gives you perspective on things, especially when it all feels so hopeless. Hope is the only thing that you can cling on to when it's too late. You hope that the future will get better for those that come after. Without that hope, your death would mean nothing. You'd be the smoke that rises when you snuff a candle. Fragrant, but ultimately forgotten. You finally figure out what things are worth caring about and what things aren't worth caring about. And in fact, there's a sort of zen to it. You can see it on a lot of these faces.
Calm as Hindu cows.
And all along the street, you're going to see boxes of goods. Old furniture, dressers, the possessions of the soon-to-be dead to be given to those who need it. And as soon as they get close to the end, the people of Lumiere bond together and give of themselves for the greater good. When a society becomes inured to death, they develop a fatalistic attitude or even a nihilistic one, which causes them to ignore the end. Apathy toward entropy. Or in other words, apathy is death. Because why should you care about something that's going to happen after you're already dead, am I right? A slice of society would only care when something affects them directly, and when it's time for them to pay the pauper, you better bet they're going to be at City Hall asking who they can yell at. So instead of focusing on the hopeless and selfish nature of people, which would make the tone feel drab and kind of pointless, the game chooses to focus on how it brings most of us together. The themes of this game are reinforced with a look at the minority of people who have lost all hope.
I can't look at her. She's just another reminder that nothing we do matters. Nothing. We hope and we persevere, and still they die. They all die and we can't stop it. We can't save them. We bring another generation into this world just so they can watch us die before they're even old enough to understand why.
The writer struck a perfect balance here of hopelessness and hope. There's enough hope that the light and possibilities of the expedition shines through the gloom. And this is all the more apparent when you talk to the painter. First, he's a painter, and people associate his hobby as a reflection of the paintress and her perceived evil. And he's gonna die soon, so what's the point of painting anymore? You pursue hobbies, if you're anything like me, to get good at something. We have plenty of time to do that in the span of our life, but he doesn't have that much time. He ages 2 years for every 1 year that passes, so his time on this earth is coming to an end. There's a running theme here, that of creation leaving behind a legacy. While everyone around them is sad, waiting the destruction of their lives or their loved ones, the artists aren't even paying attention to that. They're in their own world, having a great time, creating in the midst of all the destruction that's about to happen. Their motivations, oddly enough, are akin to graffiti artists. No one knows who they are. They're not important, but people have seen their name, and for invisible people, being seen, that's all they want. They want to leave behind something about who they were and what they were all about. Something of themselves survives for however long society allows it to remain. These artists seem so zen because an artist is always seeking inspiration either in the beauty or the ugliness of the world. So for some artists, tragedy is sort of like their sustenance. They don't enjoy it, but it feeds them inspiration. I think the reason that we pursue our passions is because leaving behind something of ours that we made means a little bit of us survives. The painter leaves behind a thought, communicated, or passes on a feeling they themselves were feeling. If the portrait remains but the subject dies, some record of their existence still exists. Their essence is caught in a still frame. It may also be the reason that people in Clair Obscur die the way they do, by being erased by the artist in the horizon. But we'll get to that soon. As you walk around, you'll hear people talking to one another. They'll say their goodbyes and ask that their significant others not forget them. The soon-to-die fear that they'll be erased completely, and their only comfort is that they'll remain in the memories of those that still live. But now it's time for these people to confront the end.
I'm here.
I'm not a crier. I don't cry. I work out.
That seems really dark. No, it's not dark. You're misunderstanding me, bro. She would never say no because of the implication.
Implications. It's what we use to interpret the meaning of seemingly meaningless things. Usually, out of context, you don't notice these things, because if the mystery's done right, you really shouldn't know what's going on or what anything means. So, all those small details may be lost on you on a first playthrough, and once the full context of the story is revealed, it starts to make a whole lot more sense. And when a character says something or does something, knowing more about them and their motivations gives you new perspective and therefore meaning to everything you experience. Now, this is Lune. She's dreamy, she's aloof, hyper-focused, insensitive, and single-minded. It's not that she does it on purpose, it's because she's determined, excited about her work, and that point of focus takes attention away from empathy. I heard someone attribute the writer to having said something along the lines of, each character is her at a stage in her life, and that Lune was her when she was in grad school, which makes a lot of sense. Because if you're in grad school and you're paying all that money, you want to get everything that you can out of that education. So Lulu tells Gus that he doesn't have her permission to die yet and tells him to get over it, and then they have a fight with a thing. So Dead Guy gets his soul or whatever sucked up into this little device that Gustav made, and I think that's supposed to represent how this converter is able to turn the chroma into power. Gustav hesitantly follows Lune to the indigo tree where they were told to meet if anyone survived. Now I want you to take a look around, and what do you see? You see a lot of dead people, that's what you see. This is like some kind of abattoir, a place where they dump the dead bodies of expeditioners that got gatted by an old guy and his finger blasters. We can glean a few things about this guy from the visual information that all of this implies. Whoever this old guy is, he's been up to this for a very long time. He also seems to place very little worth in human life, or at least doesn't respect the lives of expeditioners. And the big question is, why doesn't he just go to Lumiere and kill everyone there? If he's as powerful as he seems, I mean, why wouldn't he? And then there wouldn't be any expeditions, and he wouldn't have to worry about killing anybody anymore. If I had to guess, I'd say they didn't go in that direction because they needed the story to happen. And what about that figure that saved MAE earlier? Who was that guy? They're obviously very powerful because, well, just look at the body count. Slobodan Milosevic would be proud to call this a mass grave.
Something's wrong with it. Why isn't it attacking us?
I mean, look at a guy, Lune. He's fat, he's breathing heavy, he's obviously too tired to beat you to death.
Well, it certainly attacked them.
See, he's just catching a little breather in between murders. I knew a guy like that. His name was Tony. If he had to take care of two guys, he'd tie one of them up after he beat the other guy, and then he'd sit down and take a 15-minute break. Why 15 minutes, you might be asking? Well, I asked him one day, and he told me that even coal miners get a lunch break. Imagine being the other guy, waiting to die, just sitting there, watching your friend bleed out. But listen, that's what happens when Jeff Bezos finds out you've been taking piss breaks on company time. You've been warned, so you gotta expect a visit from Tony. They even warn you about the big Italian dude wandering around the packing floor with a lead pipe. And I mean, they give you a company diaper. I mean, sure, it's slightly used, but still, just use it, you know what I mean? Anyway, Gus finds a journal from a previous expedition, and you're going to find a lot of these scattered throughout the game. Each one of them offers some sort of valuable info about the world, about the expeditioners and their lives in Lumiere, and sometimes about the characters in your group. The game's story is so twisting that it needed something like this to fill in the gaps for those curious enough to find them.
Expedition 81, Renee. Huge discovery. This is the first Nevron with whom we've been able to communicate. It seems stuck in this cave. Gregoire is, as usual, deeply suspicious, but this could change our entire understanding of Nevrons and the Painters.
But let's focus on this aspect for a moment. This dude is not a violent guy. He's a cool, laid-back hippie type, just having a layback. And this is weird, because as we've seen, these Nevrons are the opposite of cool and laid back. They're kind of assholes. This one even tells us that he would never willingly plunge others into darkness, which means someone is forcing the other Nevrons, perhaps, into killing. Maybe it's that Oron-looking dude that chopped off our friend's head earlier.
They communicated with a Nevron.
The dead here don't disappear like in Lumiere. Their chroma stays inside their bodies.
On the beach, some did disappear.
He wasn't a Nevron.
So, the game has set up this fact here, that the chroma, whatever that is, stays inside the bodies of the people who were killed by the Nevrons. I've played plenty of games that introduce seemingly random things like this, and those facts never play a part in the game. Or if they do, they're not very significant. They're just that, random facts. But this game don't play that. These husks come into play later, and their chroma has an important use in the story. But what's more, it's directly responsible for the events that are happening in the game. So it's not just that this fact is important for some minor plot point. The point is, this game doesn't waste your time with pointless world building. Everything is purposeful.
Leo!
For those who come after. The Painters must fall!
Celebrate later. There'll be others. We should be safe up in the tree.
Yeah.
Are they just gonna leave that guy there? I mean, Jesus, cut the guy down at least. Check for vital signs. Maybe the guy's still alive. I mean, if I had $1 for every dead guy I put in my trunk that wasn't actually dead, I'd have $5. So Fat Boy's happy, he gets shown the light, and it reveals his true purpose, and you get a healing tint shard, which is quite excellent. Apparently this Nevron was created to show the light and the way to the other Nevs, which tells us that not all of them are violent psychopaths. But we don't know why, not yet at least. Gustav and Lune find the spot where they were supposed to find Mael, and all they find is a letter etched into the wall. We're told to head to a place with weird corals, and Gustav, as you can imagine, is ready to go. But Lune, with that big old brain of hers, is unsure. She thinks it's a trap of some sort, and again, Gustav doesn't care about that. He reasons with her, or tries to at least, but she's steadfast on this whole rules and protocol shit, and Gustav says the coldest shit ever.
There's a reason it's protocol. We designed it to yield the optimal result in the vast majority of situations.
Was our entire team dying part of that optimal result?
Now that's satisfying. The face of a nerd when they know that they're wrong and you're right. It's priceless. Then he's like, okay, stay here, dummy, but I'm going. And then he uses her own protocol against her.
Protocol also states, never move solo. I'll let you choose which protocol to break.
That's a low blow, Gustav. You know that she loves protocol. Next we head to the Upside Down ocean. Once you get here, look up and you'll see an ocean up there with a bunch of whales, and you'll start thinking to yourself, is this place real? And the answer is no. It's a game. This isn't the type of game that over-explains. The way this thing works is that you're supposed to allow yourself to get immersed and let your imagination fill everything else in. Like, how is this ocean upside down? You decide, because I'm going to tell you, the explanation that the game gives is pretty unsatisfactory to anybody who's watched a student art film. It's not bad, just like, you know, the twist is like a slow-moving train. You'll probably see it coming. Next, we get a little bit of misdirection, and I gotta tell you, this threw me off the scent the first time I played it.
So, we can rest a bit, but the moon is bright. I want to keep moving.
Have you learned nothing from the beach?
No, I am not leaving Mael alone a minute longer than I have to.
But right now, it's just the two of us, and I don't want to bring Mael your corpse. We have to think every step through. The man on the beach, you saw what he did. But more than that, you saw his face.
What is the first thing that you think of when you see this scene? Gus and the old guy are the same guy, right? Exactly. And then Lune says this.
He must be what? 50? 60? Yet he survived the Gamage.
Now think about what they did here. She mentions his face, and Gus is thinking about him. Something about that guy's face bothers Gustav. But Lune's obliviousness and Gus's silence says that he's keeping a secret from her. So, is Gus and the old dude the same dude? Sorry, you're gonna have to keep watching to find out. See, that's what I mean about this game's storytelling. You start to form all these theories in your head, and the game is constantly throwing you hints. And some of those hints are just misdirections. When you get to the end game, you'll know just about everything that's important, and on a new Game Plus run, all those hints and misdirections will start to take on new meanings. The reason you watch a movie more than once is the same reason a player will probably play this game again. They want to see what they noticed the second time through, and to see the true meanings of things they didn't understand the first time out. After a trip through an upside-down ocean, Gus and Lulu find a door just chilling out, and of course they decide to open it. Okay, so the camera pans back and a mysterious figure is shown watching our group like a pervert looking through a hole in a locker room shower. And soon, wha-bam, we're in Epstein's Island mansion looking for a little girl. And luckily, they found her, because Jeffrey's lurking nearby.
Surprise, motherfucker!
And he's not looking so good after he... Wait a minute. It says in my script that he died. Is that true? Really? Huh. Wow. I didn't even know he was sick. Yeah, it says right here he died from a throat thing. Crazy. So, Mael was being taken care of by a guy with some big old hole in his face who can't speak on account of his tracheotomy. Now, in the real world, these people are called painters, and they're able to Narnia their paintings and the things that they create. And if you step into the canvas, you step out into the world that they've created. This girl, Mael, like George Lucas said, she's the key to all this. She's the funniest character we've ever had. And this guy, this dude, who looks like he's being held together by Silly Putty, he's Mael's dad. He's been trapped in the canvas by the paintress, who is also Mael's mom. Now, if I understand this correctly, the monolith that the paintress paints on is also a prison that holds Mael's dad hostage, and the curator is an astral projection of himself. But the thing is, why do both of Mael's parents look like golems? Because Mael's brother, who is this little boy you'll meet soon, he also looks like this, but he's dead, so that makes sense. So I understand why he looks that way, but the others are alive, so why do they look like that? You come to the right place for answers. Analyzing cryptic media is my jam. After all, when you've watched as many J.J. Abrams shows as I have, you get really good at analyzing meaningless things just so you can figure out what the hell you just watched for the last 100 hours. I mean, what was Felicity thinking? That guy over this guy? What does that even mean? What is he trying to say? Why does Mael act like she didn't recognize the old man on the beach? Well, that's because she's got amnesia. Why? Well, because she wanted to hide from her father by being reborn as a canvas worlder, because her father's only goal is to remove her from the canvas as well as her mother. Mael's mom is obsessed with her son Verso, who painted this canvas in the first place, but is now dead. So there's a couple of possibilities here and nothing concrete. We have this event called the fracture, right? That probably represents the death of the child pulling the family apart, and that's why they look like a pile of rocks. They're literally falling apart from grief. Having her parents look this way could also be due to Mael's fractured memories. She's not recognizing them because she's never met them, so they appear formless. Or she could be intentionally trying to forget who they are, which is why they no longer have faces. It could also be why they're hiding from her, to keep an eye on her without her knowing it. Like watching a girl through a window. Or maybe the mother is disguising the husband so he can reach out to Mael to ask for help. Because if Renoir, that's his name, if he gets out, he's going to try and pull her mom out of the painting and burn the canvas behind them. She knows that he won't be able to do that as long as Aline, Mael's mom, and Mael herself are still inside the painting. So maybe she's hiding his and her identity from Mael because the only person capable of freeing him is her. That is a Gestural. These guys are great, like this game's version of a Moogle. These guys are like little puppets, and that's one way to see them. The other way to see them is as a figure drawing mannequin that has been hastily painted over and giving paintbrushes to stand in for hair. Now, imagine Mael and her older brother Verso playing around in Mommy and Daddy's workshop, painting all their mannequins and playing Gestrals versus Nevrons. And it makes sense too, posable gesture mannequins, Gestrals, it's the only explanation. Just look at the brush binding around the top of his head, it looks like a pencil eraser clasp. This world was painted by a child as a playground for his imagination, so these Gestrals are like a memory of Verso. The memory of when Aline and her husband caught the kids painting all their figurines, and if this canvas is destroyed, Aline is afraid that she may forget the memory entirely. You know, the same reason people keep the clothes of their dead parents, because you can go into that closet and remind yourself of your loved ones. These artifacts, as I keep describing them, also allow us to at least keep some part of our memories intact as age takes those memories away. The Mannequin Man tells us that there's an entire village of Gestrals nearby, and this makes Lune's panties very heavy. Research, finding new things, the prospect of discovery, it gets her slip and slide drenched. So regardless of what the rest of the team wants to do, they are going to be heading to the village because they need passage through the sea, and to get to the island where the paintress is, the Gestrals are their only lead. But first we need to beat up this little kid. Finally. Something I'm good at. Never mind. So Mael is a nightmare, which 100% accurately predicts the future, except what hairstyle and outfit she's going to be rocking when it happens. And this scene is misdirecting you into thinking that the guy with the cool scar did it. But did he? But I have another question. When did this girl get psychic powers? Because she has amnesia, right? So that means that she forgot her past. So we know this isn't the past, or we at least assume it isn't. So when did she get psychic abilities? Like, it's never mentioned again. Did they explain this later or anything? Not as far as I remember. I guess it's one of those things you're just not supposed to think about. And after we absolutely demolish their walking plushies, we are invited to town because we're bad enough dudes to meet the chef or chief or whatever. Now, we need to get to the other side of this continent because there's a vast ocean separating them from the paintress, so we need a boat, preferably one that isn't suspended in midair. Golgra here tells us that we need to talk to a super cool guy named Esquier, and listen, dude, best character in the game. Only problem is, we can't get to Esquier without the password, and she ain't giving it to us unless we fight in the arena. The final battle has a special guest, a survivor from the beach. Her name is CL, and she's the best support in the game. So you fight her, get the password from Golgra, and head back to camp to rest up before more parrying and digging through menus. Now, CL represents another state on the hope versus hopelessness scale, and she exists in a category all her own. CL doesn't hope anymore. She probably used to hope, but after so much loss, she's given up on all that. And when a situation causes you to lose all hope, you either crash out into a depressive, apathetic state where you accept life as it is, but you're not happy about it, or you're like CL, and you know things are shit, but you don't let that affect you when there's good times to be had. I like party girls. Are you a party girl? Her hopelessness has progressed to a zen-like state, and because of that, she's the bravest one in the group. It's a step up from nihilism in that there's no apathy, but a YOLO approach to all of life's problems. But then, Mael's brain has its period.
Alicia, I told you to stay home. It's not good for you to see this. Yes, I understand. It's her fault, and she doesn't even know it. But you can't be here. You should never have come. You're only going to make things worse for everyone. Now take your friends and go home. Let them spend their final year in peace. This is your only warning.
Okay, here's what's gonna happen now. We're gonna explain this. This girl is Mael, but Mael is here. How could she be there and here at the same time? Well, Mael with the red hair, that's the real Mael, or Alicia, and this girl is the fake Alicia, one that her mother, the paintress, created. Now, the paintress wanted to spend eternity with her children, so she recreated them in a painted world. Renoir, the old dude, he's Alicia's father. And Verso, the guy we haven't met yet, that's the brother that Alicia lost to a terminal case of death. So, that girl and that guy are the fake family that Aline created so she didn't have to deal with her grief. So, why is her face all melted? The real Alicia got baked extra crispy in a fire, so the mom recreated her as she knew Alicia in the real world. These fake family members are trying to keep the expeditioners from making it to the paintress because they are now, once again, a complete family, even if they aren't technically the real people they were created to represent. They are still living and breathing people with their own feelings and need to survive and loves to love and hobbies to partake in, a life to live. And this theme will come into play much later in the game. So next we head over to Esquier's house.
No Esquier.
There's no muss.
Pardon me?
Now, why does he sound like a child who got dropped on his head? Well, I'm glad you asked. As I said before, all these characters are from the imagination of a very young child. So this is just what a very young child thinks a cool and smart character sounds like. They speak in riddles, but he's really speaking in that broken way that a 4 or 5-year-old might talk. So, in this game where we were sitting in an abattoir on top of a pile of dead bodies about to shoot ourselves, we're now talking to an imaginary friend of a 5-year-old who seems to have a speech impediment.
Bonjour, mes amis.
See, what is he even trying to say? Are those even words?
Hey, bonjour mon ami.
Ciel?
Odd. I don't know. He seems nice.
And it's interesting because your first time through the game, you don't know any of this. Hell, maybe even after beating it, you won't realize it. But this is the type of game where weird, seemingly out of place things will happen, and once you know the full context, the meaning becomes more important to the player. Because the game balances the hope and hopelessness so well, it never feels so out of place that it's jarring. In fact, it only causes more mystery.
You finally come to learn to swim?
No. I'm not that fond of water.
In what way? There's a lot of you to carry. I'm strong, but I'm not that strong. I will need Flory.
Who's Flory?
One of my rocks.
Rocks?
See? Flory helps me swim.
So we need to get our brain-damaged new friend a rock so he could swim, because he could swim, but having us on his back is just going to be too much. In other words, he's telling us we're fat, and I already knew that. But in order to get those rocks, we need to face this monster, this king amongst Nevrons.
But Flory was stolen by my arch nemesis, the one whose every step shakes the foundation of the world, the one known as Francois.
Okay.
And thankfully, he's right next door. And it turns out that Francis and Esquier are roommates, and Francois, the large chunk of rock that can't move, is stealing his rocks.
Who dares enter my lair? You can't just walk into someone's home without knocking. That is incredibly rude.
Is that... Are you Francois? He's just a talking rock.
Wait, I thought Flory was the rock.
A rock? I am not a rock. Do you have rocks for eyes? You certainly have rocks for brains. I am clearly a turtle. Esquier! Stop sending hooligans over here!
Stop being a meanie. They're nice humans.
Then keep them on your side of the caves!
It's a shame that he's not in this game more. He was a much needed foil to all the cutesy-wootsy stuff going on with Esquier. Like all good things, this ended in a fist fight when Franny cops an attitude.
Now get off my lawn!
It's okay. We'll leave. We're just here for Flory.
So, not only are you intruding, you're here to steal? Oh my word! Humans! Well, over my dead body! Rah!
So, we beat up a helpless turtle, get one of the best Pictos in the game, find out that the rocks we want are in a different castle, and it's time for a new adventure. The adventure of climbing up a mountain, getting one of our party members killed, and opening up travel to other islands in the area. But before we do any of that, we need to camp first so Mael can have a weird nightmare. And there's this really great moment with Gus and MAE-MAE where they talk about how scary the unknown is.
I don't understand what's happening. And I feel like I never understood. Like, I'm always missing something that everyone else just gets. In Lumiere, life never made sense, and I never fit, and now out here, when it was just starting to maybe feel good, then this happens, and
Yeah. I hate it too. Things we don't understand. They just make us feel small and powerless.
All of these people are swept up into a family drama that they know nothing about. The world is a literal secret that no one knows the origin of. Not to mention, one of life's biggest questions. What caused the shattering in the first place? What was the world like before all that? Imagine having no clue where anything comes from. Life is still exciting and full of all kinds of new things to discover, new frontiers to conquer, but time is dwindling and the end is coming. And then imagine you hear this shit.
I envy them. Those who can't see. Those who know not that they are not.
You're not real. You find out that all this crazy stuff you can't explain doesn't have an explanation, and nothing is real. But what makes something real? Is something real because it exists, even if it's a figment of someone's imagination? It kind of gives new context to what we're all talking about before. When people die, they live on in people's memories. These people are literally a memory of a dead child. It's at this point in the game that I kind of guessed the entire plot of the game on stream. This line gave it all away. Not that I didn't already have my suspicions, and normally I'd be rolling my eyes at this plot. Oh, none of this happened and the main character's in a coma? Ooh, how unique. Never seen that before. But this game manages to pull it off because it isn't there to just hand wave away a plot. It is the entire point of the game's story. It also doesn't come out of nowhere. The story has been building up to it, giving you hints the entire time. You were supposed to already know because this reveal isn't really revealing anything you didn't already expect. The why of this place, the paintress, the gamage, it all relates to the monolith and the paintress. So really, in the end,
it's about family, and that's what's so powerful about it.
So you know how Gus was like, hey Mael, if that gray-haired man shows up, run. I'll run too, but you should totally start running and don't look back because if you do, you're gonna see me not running.
Well, you know, like I always say, it's not about the rock. It's more about the...
Run. Okay, I'm not a big fan of this for a couple of reasons, and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I love Gustav. He could have just jumped off the cliff and he'd still be alive, but no, he has to sacrifice himself for reasons. And don't give me that shit about him getting shanked. These guys have managed to stay alive when a massive 20-foot creature jumps all the way up in the air and lands on them. But he can't survive a stabbing? Get the hell out of here. He wanted to make sure that his friends made it to safety, and the old dude has Mael trapped, so he's not just gonna leave her there. Now think about it like this. Is Gus better off up there dying or better off trying to help the other members of his group get to safety? Old man's got Mael tied up, Gus is dying. For all he knows, he's depriving the expedition of 2 members instead of just 1. What if this white-haired dude just jumped down on the Esquier right now and started killing his companions? They'd die because he wasn't down there fighting with them instead of being up there acting like Mr. Hero Man. I still think Gus would do what he's doing now because Mael is the only person he has left. I'm not saying it's out of character. What I'm saying is there was a better way to do this whole thing. What if Sael was the reason Gus couldn't jump? She's already told us she's afraid of water.
I'm not that fond of water.
They made a big deal about it, but they didn't pay it off. And it would have worked great here. It's never brought up again. Almost like that was supposed to be what happened, but someone gave up on the idea. Now, Sael doesn't like water, and down there is a whole lot of water. She should be shitting her panties right now. And Gus, seeing this, maybe pushes her down, and that delay is what causes Gus to get killed, trying to stop the white-haired man from killing Sael.
Hey, you can do this.
I hate water.
Instead, she just jumps down off the cliff like it ain't shit but hoes and tricks. If she'd been the reason that Gus died, she'd feel awful. Getting over her fear of water would be like honoring the memory of Gus. You could even have there be tension between Mael and Sael until she gets over her fear. It'd be another character arc. Instead, they just don't have a lot to do with Sael, and she comes off as a sort of shallow character. Because Sael has no character arc, nothing to do. She's just kind of along for the ride. And what's more, even her romance is a letdown. I mean, it could be a part of her character, right? Someone who's comfortable being the way they are, right? But I can't help but feel like Lune is one of the only people aside from Mael and Verso who get a proper arc and a satisfying ending to their story. How does her romance end? It ends in sex and an awkward conversation about how she's not looking for anything but penis, because apparently her husband was a real cunning linguist, and after him, no other man can compare. And when you get Verso's ending and Sael is dying, you feel nothing, because her character gave nothing. They really did Sael wrong. Like, there's a story there, but it seems to rarely get any play. See, Sael is afraid of water because apparently she tried to kill herself by jumping in the ocean and swimming as far as she could before she drowned. She did this because her husband died and Esquier saved her, but she lost the baby because of it, and that's why come she has Scar. So anyway, Gus is dead now, and as you can imagine, Mael is très triste. But the white-haired man, who isn't really all that white-haired at all, is going to need to monologue for a little while before Mael can properly grieve.
You won't yet understand. But this is a kindness, not a cruelty.
Damn, he Dr. Stranged her!
You let her come. You know she's too weak for this. How could you let her take such a risk?
You only care when things are right in front of you. My sweet child, you are supposed to stay home. I told you not to worry. But since you're here now, just stay put.
What are you saying? You must go home, now. This does not involve you.
When this is over, we'll go home together.
No!
So this white-haired guy tries to tell Mael, like, hey, I'm totally sorry, but I gotta kill you. I hope you understand. Before he can massacre a child, a cooler-looking Gustav with much more riz flies in to help her.
So that's it. You've set us down this path. But are you ready for the consequences?
She'll never paint again.
You duplicitous bitch.
Back at the Super Friends hideout, this new guy, Verso, he's here to replace Gustav, because we need another dude in this group or it's just going to be all women. And who's going to be there to please them all? Mael, she's still sad, but that's where our brain-damaged toddler comes in to save the day. I have diabetes now, and not just because I'm fat. Meanwhile, Sael and Lune are over there by the campfire reminiscing about the time they finger banged one another in a greenhouse, and we get this awesome screenshot. Wait, dude, what? They cut away at the best part. This is like if a porno cut away to another scene whenever somebody got horny. This guy tells our remaining expeditioners that he too was from an expedition, the first expedition, Expedition 0. The old man is old because he, as well as this dashing devil, are immortal. they cannot die. The old man is trying to keep people from getting to the paintress because if she dies, they die as well. And later on, you'll run across this fading memory of a woman. If you talk to her with any other companion besides Mael, she won't respond. But for Mael, she says that she's surprised to see her awake. She alludes to whether or not Mael is awake, meaning, has she removed the veil from her eyes? Does Mael know what is really happening yet? Since she hasn't figured it out, this woman responds patronizingly. And that's how you know you're talking to Clair, your big sister. If someone's being a snide asshole and you're wondering who it is, it's usually Clair. And that's what makes her so hot. So hot! I bet she's got a pair of boots that she only uses to step on people. Since Mael still thinks she's Mael, Clair tells her to not interfere and just run off and play with her little friends. And after a big bad man fight, you'll go find a nice place to bury Gustav, and everyone has a big cry about it.
Couldn't wait for me, could you? I wish we could.
Rest easy, Gustav.
I'll finish what you started. The paintress, RENOIR, they will pay.
No more dome. Just open skies.
See, that would have been much more impactful if Sael was responsible for his death and not Mael. It's still impactful, but I don't know. I just really like the idea that Sael's responsible for it. I don't know, it just works. And next we head to a place called Minoko Station so we can pick up our final companion, because we find out that even though we have a straight shot to the paintress, we can't get to her. There's a barrier protecting her, and we need to break that barrier in order to do it. And the only way Verso knows how to take it down is to go out to Old Lumiere and destroy the paintress's heart. Now Lune has her doubts, but after she hears the words Old Lumiere, she's suddenly down for whatever. A real freak. Once you get to the station, you're going to meet your final companion, Minoko. You know how in Final Fantasy there's always a character whose gimmick is that they use the attacks of the enemies that they fight? Yeah, that's Minoko. He can turn into other monsters when he steals feet. He steals feet, and he has to polish them every night. So my question is, what is he doing with those feet when no one's watching? So we have a fight with a thing called a stalact, and Verso has a suspicious conversation.
Now that we've had some good battles to warm the spirits, to what do we owe the pleasure of your company?
We're heading for Old Lumiere.
Okay, bye.
Hey, come on. Hey. Hey, look. I know we failed before, but look, you doofus. Don't you recognize her?
Of course I do.
Then you know what that means. This is our shot. It might be our only shot.
This is your only shot. Out of the question. I will never join you again.
There will be a lot of fighting, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fighting.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
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 Yes, good.
So we head to Old Lumiere, we get separated because of Minoko for some reason, and Lune finds some evidence. Evidence that Verso isn't who he says he is.
58. They were the ones that Verso was traveling with. I believe so. They made it surprisingly far. An axon. Interesting. Verso is...
Is this true?
Mael's with him.
We need to go. Now!
Verso would never harm her.
He's the son of that Renoir guy.
How many times must you hurt our family?
No, you don't get to lecture me on family. You're doing this for yourself.
Of course. It's easier for you to think that, isn't it? Easier to betray us if I'm the villain.
What is Will you tell me your name?
Where did it go? No. Alicia.
Fuck!
And the Paintress's heart is in that mansion that guy made disappear. So now Verso is outed, the mansion is gone, and that was the only chance they had to stop the Paintress. Now, they have nothing. So, Verso comes clean, tells a group about a second option. Jeffrey, over here, has the ability to make a weapon that is so radical that it could pierce the chroma field hiding the Paintress. So anyway, you gotta kill these two hoes called the Axons. We need to kill them for Mr. Hole in the Face because we need a ton of chroma to forge their rad weapon that he swears he can make. And the only source of chroma big enough is these supposed Axons, who are impossible to kill according to that pussy-ass hoe Verso. These Axons are supposed to represent the Desandra family members. The name of this Axon is She Who Plays with Wonder. The Siren is here to show the dangers of getting lost in your own world, or the wonders of this one, while ignoring everything around you. Now, look at this place. It's covered in dust. There's sand everywhere. It's like they never vacuum. Everything is in a ruined state. This once opulent looking place is now falling apart from neglect. This Axon likely represents Aline, since Clea's Axon was killed by a guy named Simon. Clea's Axon was called the Hauler because that Axon was responsible for hauling a city on its shoulders. Clea is the pragmatist. She's the person who tries to talk sense into and take care of the neglectful, self-indulgent family she had the misfortune of being born into. So this Axon is likely there to represent Aline, who is inspired by a real-life person who actually existed in the flesh, but we'll get to that in the final chapter. But for now, just understand that there's a deeper meaning here than just representing people with these Axons. They don't just act as a stand-in for the person, they represent how others see them, specifically how Renoir sees the family members. He sees Verso as a child hiding his true feelings behind a mask of happiness, and he sees Aline as a beautiful, wonderful, and enchanting woman. A woman that has him completely in her thrall. It's like this dude doesn't know that she's going to take 50% of his shit when they get divorced. And that's probably why they locked each other in that monolith, huh? So this place represents the beauty of Aline in the eyes of Renoir, and perhaps how he feels about her grief, that it's causing the life around her to crumble. The last Axon represents Verso, and since the rest of this is pretty straightforward, we're going to speed run this thing. This place is all about deception, self-deception mostly. You fight these various masks which represent an emotion that Verso tried to hide as a child. He hid those things as to not disappoint his parents, who had other plans for him, and in return for sparing his parents' feelings, he lived a life full of separation pains. The pain of being kept from your real passion in life and having to keep your passions to yourself. You can't even tell anyone about your grief. So you beat the last Axon, and now, after all this, you get the Ultima weapon from Poppy, so you could go beat up Mommy. This next section is the big fight with Mommy Dearest, and just like the movie, this is going to take a long time. And this closet is full of wire hangers, as well as some interesting world building. Every now and then you'll get a glimpse of the Paintress and her family, and you'll get to see what the game won't really tell you, so to fully understand what's going on, you have to see these memories and piece it together yourself. So you get to the Paintress and you poke her with your weapon a few times and nothing happens. And then she appears, the real Paintress, not that really big doll trying to pass as her. Do you know what she does? She sets everyone on fire. Now, it may not seem like it, but this is a very important scene, so watch it a few times and see if you can see the hidden meaning here. All of this will be important in the final analysis, so keep this cutscene in your head for later. The following areas are a pastiche of the places you've explored and the places Verso remembers as a child. This is all in an effort to make Verso feel guilty. You see, we've heard about Aline. We heard about how she can manipulate people and snare them with her feminine wiles. Perhaps all these visions of Verso and Aline spending time together is to make him remember the good times, and so that he'll give up trying to kill her. Before we can get to the Paintress, however, we have to fight Painted Renoir.
We are your family.
Family is complicated.
Maybe this family is. So you have a boss fight with a geriatric old man who uses a cane to walk around, and surprise, surprise, you beat him up.
At long last, we meet. This is all you have left of your son. Destroying it won't bring your wife back. It will only destroy the last tie you have to each other.
So you ascend the path up to the Paintress, and a bunch of stuff you probably already figured out is revealed.
You've come back. But the fire. Are you really here? Or is he? Oh, is he playing tricks again? Alicia.
Alicia?
Your face.
My face? What about my face? Are you going to burn it again?
Alicia's your daughter. And Mael reminds you of her. The daughter you lost.
Come along. Let's go home.
Yes. You need to go home.
This is another trick. She's not Alicia. You are not my Verso.
No. Verso's dead.
No. You are his creations, not mine. You will not take this canvas from me.
And you have a boss fight, and this fight is spectacular. It does what any penultimate fight should do. Multi-phase, with the second phase being full of spectacle and bombast. See, in the second phase, she summons her huge puppet to fight you, and SKA pulls up his dump truck and carries us to her. You fight the Paintress while riding on top of a mentally handicapped fat man. It's fun, it's sort of challenging, and after this fight, it'll be the last fight where your damage is capped at 9,999. After the fight with her, as she's laying dying, she pulls out a third form, where she only heals Verso, no one else. Just in case you didn't get the point the first time that Verso is her favorite. Mael plants a flag. Everyone shares a triumphant moment, and we head back to Lumiere for a celebration. And then everybody dies!
Your mother paints life, whilst your father, death. What will you paint?
I'm retarded?
And we wake up as Mael, but actually Alicia, burnt face, blown out eye socket, mute Alicia. We find out from our lovely, warm sister that our parents are fighting. Renoir has Aline trapped at the top of the monolith, and she has him trapped beneath. So, from this, we can gather what happened. Mother dies, wakes up in the real world, which then releases Renoir from his prison. Renoir deletes all the people in Lumiere that his daughter is attached to because he can't destroy the canvas without her leaving first. There's also a hint of a conflict that this family has a part in, and this conflict requires their parents' attention, but they're too busy screwing around inside a painting. They're at war with somebody called the Writers. These Writers, they had somehow used Alicia to get to the family, which Clair alludes to being the fault of Alicia's naivete and weakness. And she all but says that I ain't dying for you, Alicia. She says to her sibling, you're a screw up. Verso's death is your fault, you're a bad person, and you should feel bad. Okay, Clay, I'm almost there, so just tell me I'm a dirty boy and then spit in my face. Everyone, it seems, hates Alicia, or at least holds a grudge, except for Renoir. In fact, Renoir has the exact opposite feelings for Verso that he does for Alicia. We see a cutscene featuring that black hole from before. We also see this when Painted Renoir expels MAE-MAE from her body. And I don't think it's any great mystery what this was supposed to represent. The black hole is a symbol for the end and the beginning. It's a stand-in for an oocyte or an egg. You are in the void of nothingness, and then you're reborn as a child to some random schmuck in Lumiere.
Alicia.
Actually, I prefer Maya.
Now that MAE-MAE knows who she is, she comes back with an awesome new outfit and hair. And now that everyone she knew is dead or living real lives in the real world, the problem they face now is Renoir. Verso and MAE-MAE have a conversation about everything. She's not really MAE-MAE, and he's not really Verso, but it doesn't matter to her. But for Verso, it's different. He doesn't want to be this animal anymore, and perhaps he thinks it's time to go to the smallest church in Saint Cyan, because if he can't be real, then none of this mattered at all. MAE-MAE tells Verso that she's sorry for getting him killed, and it's like, MAE-MAE, that's not Verso. You didn't get him killed. Then it's revealed, sort of, that the curator is Renoir, even though it already showed us that earlier. Renoir tells MAE-MAE how proud he is of her, and in the same breath, tells her he's going to kill Verso, and the painting, and basically every last vestige of him. He needs to do this because his wife will simply go back into the canvas the moment she's feeling better. If Renoir doesn't want to lose his wife, he needs to destroy this canvas. In the end, you have to fight Renoir and expel him from the canvas. And look, this ending, it is what it is. After you beat the panties off of Renoir, you have to make a choice. You either side with MAE-MAE or Verso. If you side with Verso, the canvas is destroyed.
You're tired of painting, aren't you? I'm tired too.
Don't do this. Don't leave me again.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay, huh? You've got this incredible power to paint. You'll never have to suffer a life you don't want. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. I will miss you guys. It's okay. It's over. Verso.
there's that hollow-faced little boy there painting. Now, I don't know what this is supposed to represent, but perhaps it's Verso's essence, and it's here, painting the world of Lumiere. And perhaps this is why Verso wants to die so badly, so that he could finally rest. And the last bit of Verso that remains can finally be put to rest as well. And both of these endings, as you can imagine, are bittersweet. If you side with Verso, all the people you've grown to like die. Eskie, Lune, all of them, erased as if they never existed. But at least Verso gets what he wants, am I right? After a lifetime in a life he never wanted, a living, walking contradiction to existentialism. In the end, the family is reunited and everyone has finally moved on. And that's supposed to be the happy ending. If you side with Mael, you damn Verso to live on as essentially Mael's pet brother, until she either dies in a painting or tires of it and leaves. She, in that ending, becomes the new paintress. Sure, all her old friends are back, and Eskie, Gustave, and Lune are still alive, but Verso is in pain and forced to live with it. See, the game is telling everyone that moving on is the best thing that anyone can do, but to do that, Mael has to kill the people who love her, and I mean actually love her. So how does she give up a lifetime with the people who actually care about her? And this leads people to saying things like, bullshit, he did plenty wrong. They all did. No one gets out alive. You're all terrible people. Here's what happens. The expedition frees their real Renoir, and in response, Renoir vaporizes every living soul in Lumiere, including Mael's friends. When Mael does eventually find her dad, he tries to convince her that destroying the painting is the best thing for everyone, because her mother will just track down the canvas and trap herself inside it again. Mael doesn't want to destroy the canvas either, and in fact wants to stay inside of it just like her mother. But her father isn't having that. He tries to force her to leave by killing the painted Verso, but Lish is able to hold them together with her newly gained powers. Mael discovers how to bring some of the expedition back and start pulling the Lumina that's trapped inside the corpses of the previous expeditions to bring long since dead ones back as well, as vengeful ghosts. See, I told you that little tidbit in the beginning of the game would come back into play later. The Chroma getting trapped in the corpses was Renoir's way of draining his wife of power. So Mael brings her friends back and either goes straight to fight her dad or screws around in the open world for roughly twice the amount of time as the vanilla game. And as she does this, she learns about the motivations and feelings of everyone involved. She gets a wider context on the story. And throughout this story, we see Mael's parents fighting one another. One parent is so self-indulgent that she would rather hide inside a painting than come out and be a mother to her remaining children. The other parent cares more about his wife than he does for his children, and is willing to risk them by abandoning them to try and save their mother, while the family is in the midst of a conflict that could kill all of them. Remember, this is a very dangerous time to be absent. They already lost one child to carelessness. What's to keep it from happening to everyone? Renoir's actions seem altruistic, but they're not. It's how a lot of men deal with these kind of problems. They understand the mechanics of the problem. They understand that you have to grieve, but they also know that if you never move on, you never get to live again. So therefore, grieving is bad, stop it. He understands that this is unhealthy, but he doesn't understand his wife. And he doesn't want to. He knows he's right, even if he's wrong. He's doing the moral math. He's got the trolley problem, except his family members are tied to one railroad track, and on the other is literally everyone in Lumiere. And this brings up the morality of all this. The game said that the paintress paints life, and she does. And those lives are just as real as the people outside the canvas. What Renoir wants to do is worse than genocide, at least to the people in the painting. He wants to delete the very last memory his wife and his daughters have of Verso, because he thinks that their obsession is going to kill them. Instead of letting Aline grieve and naturally overcome the emotions she was feeling, or even being supportive and trying to help her through this, he is actively fighting her, pulling her focus away from the healing process to focus on fighting him. He's selfish because love has blinded him.
No. No, it's because I'm so in love with you.
He's blind to her pain, so instead of grieving with her, he's become her enemy. The canvas, the last thing of Verso that she has, is in danger of being destroyed by Renoir. And for what? Because it's the only thing that he can think to do. He's not creative enough to imagine some other way to help his wife. His wife, after all, was the one who introduced him to painting in the first place. She taught him how, but unfortunately, you can't teach creativity. The saying, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. Yeah, that's Renoir. This game said something to us before. The painted Renoir said that one paints death while the other paints life. The paintress paints life, but Renoir paints death, because the Renoir, when something's causing you pain, you destroy it. But wait a minute, you might be saying, wasn't she the one that was killing hundreds of thousands of people every year? Actually, no. She was telling the people of Lumiere how much time they had left to live. That's why she looks so sad off there in the distance, because she is. She didn't want this to happen, but she's going to do what she feels like she has to do regardless. Every time one of Aline's creations dies, the chroma is supposed to flow back into her, but instead, Renoir is stealing it. I never fully figured out what chroma is supposed to be, but it's like magic points. She's got a ton of it, and she has to use a little bit of her chroma to keep all of those people in Lumiere alive. But Renoir is siphoning it so it never makes it back to her. So it's like having solar panels that power your entire house, but then Mr. Burns builds a massive device to block out the sun, and now you can't even power a light bulb. So every year, Aline's power wanes, and she's able to keep less and less of them alive. So Renoir and Aline are committing mass genocide every single year. Renoir is closed-minded. There's a reason Aline painted her husband to be so selfish and self-concerned, because that's how she sees him in this moment. Aline tried to open his mind by teaching her husband how to paint, but when she needed his support the most, he decided to stand in her way, because he doesn't understand the mind of an artist. Everyone is different because our brains just function differently from one another, especially as adults, because the differences between us become much more pronounced as experience shapes how we look at the world. For example, a boxer probably grieves differently than a painter. A boxer might find comfort in losing or winning a sparring session, while a painter might immerse themselves in their work. The things we identify with, the things we do when no one's looking, that's who we really are. And sometimes the people you love understand what you're all about, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they support you, and sometimes they'll grow to resent your hobbies. They can become jealous of your passions, wishing that they could be as important to you as your work. But there's love, and then there's passion. And passion is its own kind of love. and a relationship must have room for both. When things aren't in equilibrium, you get this exact situation. A spouse who feels neglected but really wishes he had the strength to save his wife. A sister who wishes she had her brother back but really wishes she knew him better. Another sister who shoulders the weight of her parents' petty squabbles and is made bitter over it, but who actually believes herself to be a martyr, a role she probably enjoys more than she lets on. An entire family overindulging in their own vices, all because they failed somehow at being a family. Here's my theory of everything. First, we gotta start with some names, eh? Let's start with Renoir. Renoir, that sounds familiar. Where have I heard that name? Pierre Auguste Renoir, sorry to the French audience, I'm trying my best. He was a painter who was primarily known for his work in the Impressionist movement. And Aline Cherigot was featured in a painting by Pierre Renoir. Hence the name Renoir and Aline for the parents in Expedition 33. And just so I can knock this analysis out of the goddamn park, Aline Cherigot later became Renoir's wife. Hey, look at that. It's going! It's going! It's gone! Francois, the turtle from earlier, he might be named after Francois Boucher, a Rococo painter from the 18th century. Francois is a big hunk of unmoving rock in the shape of a turtle. Boucher means block or to stand in the way of. It also means butcher, but if I tell you that, it kind of undermines my point. Esquier is the most powerful being in Clair Obscur, but he wasn't named after a painter. He was named after an architect and a one-time writer of the book The 5 Orders of Architecture, Pierre Esquier. Now, think about this. Esquier is considered the most powerful being and is named after a man who is a creative, a builder, and a writer. And the game alludes to the painters being at war with the writers. So if you combine the two factions, boy, you'd be pretty damn powerful, wouldn't you? And it makes sense that a young boy like Verso might name the hero Esquier to be a writer and a creative, while Esquier's arch-nemesis, Francois, is a painter. See, Verso sees Francois, who represents the painters, as the enemy, but also a friend, while Esquier is the person he really wanted to grow up to be. But how does this relate to the betrayal or the war with the writers? Writers, if they're anything like me, are jealous of people who can draw or paint because they simply can do what we can't. There are things that words cannot convey. When writers dream, it's the closest they come to the power of a painter or an illustrator. A painter can create something that does not exist. Writers have to express concepts that are difficult to convey with words. Words are not concrete. They mean different things to different people. Words have multiple uses and definitions, so language isn't firm enough to communicate incredibly complex ideas, because the viewer can only get out of the words what they understand, whereas a painting has forms that we can identify. Even when a form is ambiguous, our mind is always assigning it a name. Painters don't have this problem of communication because they use images, while a writer uses the limited words available to them to describe what they can only imagine. Sure, they can give a name to something, and maybe the name is unique, but they're forced to use a limited tool set to describe the infinite. As such, some writers don't have the tools available to describe everything they see in their head. And even when they do, there's no guarantee that the reader will see what the writer wanted them to see. Words are powerful things in their own right, but they have a purpose. And perhaps someone in the family wanted to break bread with the writers. Perhaps they thought that combining their talents would result in a more powerful dynasty, and that grasping for power resulted in the fire that took Mael's face. Verso did it. I'll explain. First is the most obvious thing. Verso's father didn't embrace his gift for music. I'd say his parents didn't, but in a vision, you see Verso's mother teaching him piano. Now this seems unrelated. After all, music is not a book. But how do you create a song? You write it. How do you play a written song? You read it. Verso was a writer at heart, but he had to wear a mask whenever he painted because the expectation heaped on him as a Descendra was that he'd be a painter, to follow in his parents' footsteps. So he had to wear a smile when he painted, when all he really wanted to do was write music. So my theory is that Verso was meeting with the writers in secret, and they were teaching him their methods while also planting the seeds of betrayal. I think Verso betrayed the family, and Mael paid for it. because verso in French means the backside of a page. I guess you could also say that verso means two-faced. So something happened where Mael made some kind of mistake that caused the fire that disfigured her and killed Verso, but it all started with him. Perhaps Mael wished to defect with Verso since she was so close with him and likely looked up to her older brother, since her older sister is kind of an asshole. A hot asshole, but an asshole. Mael was probably the weak link that the writers needed to send a message to the painters, and this probably started the war they refer to in the Mael chapter. But there's also this bit of info. Verso, ever since Expedition Zero, has betrayed the expeditions for many, many years in order to hold on to immortality. He could have gone back to Lumiere, told everyone what was going on. He could have been the righteous one, but he chose not to. Why was Painted Verso dissatisfied with immortality by Expedition 33? Because he did something horrible that he'll never be able to forget. The only thing that will erase it is his death. He betrayed or perhaps even murdered someone that he truly loved. This was the reason he crashed out with the Painted parents. This is the reason he wants to die. Not to mention that he probably continued to betray people, the people he called friends on many occasions. How can a man who betrays his own friends continue living with the memories and faces of the people he got killed? He convinced himself that the actions were righteous, but he couldn't deny what he'd done to please his family. He was tired of wearing a mask, and most of all, tired of bearing the weight of someone else's memories, and believing they happened to him, and realizing that there is no you. This brings up a philosophical question. If Painted Verso was Verso reconstructed from the paintress's memories of him, he's not a child of hers, he's a creation of hers. Renoir is essentially Old Testament God, destructive, unimaginative, and reactionary. I don't mean unimaginative in his creations. I mean, surely my body is awfully unique and interesting in a sort of morbid way. What I mean is, Renoir is Old Testament, right? Solves his problems in an unimaginative way. He kills, he feels nothing for the people below, and he destroys them to achieve his own ends. Hell, you could think of the people in Lumiere as the Canaanites. Happy shall the Nevron be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. The paintress and Renoir are like two sides of God, you know, the feminine Christ figure and the masculine figure of a destructive and vengeful God. One paints life while the other paints death. Do you see the analogy here? The real Verso wore a mask to conceal his real emotions, and the Painted Verso had to pretend to be the expedition's friends, only to take off the mask after he betrayed them.
I miss you. I don't have the right to miss you, but I do. I wish I could talk to you. Tell you. Fuck. I don't know what I would tell you. Just ask that you forgive me. Julie. Forgive me. I'm not a traitor. I'm not. I'm trying to save. I'm trying to save us all. But you're right. I am a coward. I'm a fucking coward. You deserved to know why, but I couldn't. I couldn't face you properly. Not, and still do, what had to be done. Papa believes you're Clair's creation, and even if you're not, we can no longer trust you. But I think you just wanted answers. Why? Why couldn't you just let it go? Why did you convince them to abduct me, interrogate me? No. Fuck, I shouldn't say that. You thought I was a traitor. You were doing what you thought was right, just like we are. I swear to you, I'm doing what's right. I should have known when you started questioning things that you wouldn't be fooled. But how could I even explain? You'd have thought I'd gone mad. Doppelgangers. Canvas worlds. Man. But Papa's right. We can't take the risk. Too much is at stake. It had to be done. It had to. Clair already took our sister. If we want to save our family, our world, our people, we can't take any chances. And once we free Mama, she'll bring you back. It won't be forever. I promise. I promise. We deserve to live. All of us. We deserve to exist.
What will you paint?
Painted Verso is a two-faced scoundrel who has a lot to hate about himself. And if the paintress created him this way, maybe it's the parents that are the problem. Think about this. Verso is a two-faced, duplicitous bastard because God, Aline, painted him that way. That means that Aline loved that version of Verso so much that she wanted to spend hundreds of years with him. And I'm just going to come right out and say it. When I saw the cutscene right after the paintress's fight, I kept having flashes and images in my head of Verso sticking his own tongue down his mom's throat. And maybe that says something about me, but maybe that says something about the vibes, eh? Because there's definitely some edible shit going on here, and I don't mean Oedipus, I mean underwear. So that brings us to Renoir. Why does he want to destroy the canvas, actually? Perhaps it is to save Aline, but maybe there's also a part of Renoir that hates Verso, or is literally jealous of his son because he'll never be loved by his wife the way she loves Verso. Men escape the womb as infants and spend the rest of their lives trying to get back inside one. Or many, am I right, fellas? A part of Renoir wants to erase what's left of his son so he can forget the betrayal and the disfiguring of his daughter's face. But they also took away her voice and one of her eyes. I also think the eye thing has some significance to the story as well. Apart from disfiguring her, losing an eye means losing the way you observe the world, but more importantly, it takes away someone's depth perception. And depth perception is very important to an artist in order to capture accurately simulated depth. So, the eye is significant because the writers took away her abilities, even her voice, leaving her with no other outlet for her creativity than writing. They made a writer of one of Renoir's kids. And you can see the pain in Renoir's face when he talks to Alicia. This was a devastating blow to him. Renoir wants his family back, so his motives are completely selfish, but also understandable, and this is what makes him the perfect villain. He wants what the other characters want, but is trying to keep them from having it. But his reasons are empathetic, so you get a lot of people trying to justify his actions because they're easy to understand. Just like Joel from The Last of Us, people see Big Hero Man and they think that Guy did nothing wrong. You'd do the same thing if you could. And yeah, you're right, but the thing is, I'm not a hero. A hero is someone that's willing to do what no one else can or will do. The right thing no matter what, even if it means sacrificing. Joel doomed the world to save one person. Snyder Man broke a dude's neck and the internet shit their collective britches over it. Because Superman is the quintessential hero, a literal archetype. Breaking a dude's neck is what anyone would do in that situation if they had the power to do so. And if Superman is willing to do that, then he's not really all that different from you and me. And he isn't all that special aside from, you know, being a god. So a hero is supposed to do the right thing no matter what, to minimize the damage to as many people as they possibly can. If Superman had to catch a soaking wet Tesla in the midair to save a dog, Superman would probably do it. The fact of the matter is, Renoir is sacrificing the lives of painted people who are indistinguishable from real people just to force his wife to move on from her grief. And if that weren't bad enough, he wants to destroy the last vestiges of his son versus canvas, so his wife is forced to move on. In a way, he's a bully, But he's a sympathetic bully, an anti-hero. He gets the job done, but at what cost? Now, there's a very valid question that you might be asking yourself, and it's probably something like, why should I care about painted people? Okay, we're on a really big rock rotating around a ball of fire, surrounded by other big rocks doing the same thing. A surprising number of us believe in God, and we think that living on a spinning, orbiting rock hurtling through a cold, dead vacuum is perfectly dandy and normal. But that's because it's familiar to us. These people inside that painting felt every human emotion. They only knew the world they lived in. They're curious about it because they know so little about it. To them, that painting is as real as a big spinning rock. These people feel pain. They experience loss. If those people aren't important, then neither are you. And we're all one step closer to admitting that all this shit is for nerds and beer and chicks are the only thing that matter. And football. Did I say beer already? Oh, wait, and Coke. Okay. When all is said and done and you've beaten up your mother and you've curb stomped your daddy, now you have to fight the real adversary, your fake sibling. See, Verso is a fake Verso, and Mael is really Alicia, but Mael is the sympathetic one here if you're barely paying attention, and you might be tempted to side with her in the final conflict, but if you do, you damn Verso to a lifetime living a lie, performing like a cymbal-clapping monkey. Under her thrall, all of them under her control, everyone is happy here, except for Verso. And here's the thing, Verso deserves it, doesn't he? He deserves to be forced to live with what he did, to spend the rest of his life trying to fix the heartache he caused. Imagine living a lifetime with all the resurrected people that you betrayed, every day having to see them, seeing you, knowing you got every one of them killed. If you side with Verso, Mael is forced to move on and allow Verso to finally die. It seems like the right thing to do, don't you think? But Verso got so many people killed, and what? He just gets to kill them all over again and isn't forced to deal with or take responsibility for everything he's done? See, the parents are selfish, and the kids, learning to replicate their mistakes, are selfish as well. And every last one of them is a coward, but only one of them is a backstabbing coward. But, and this is going to sound weird, there is one person who seems to get off scot-free, and that's Clair. She's the only one in this whole story who doesn't care what anyone thinks about her. She's assertive, straight to the point, no beating around the bush. She's blunt, which is another way of saying she's kind of a dick. But she isn't worried about herself. She's worried about the family. Instead of dwelling on the past like her weak-ass parents, she's dealing with the real-world problems her family is trying to avoid. She'll have time to grieve later. If there's a hero in this story, it's Clair. When you meet the painted version of Clair, she has been painted over by the real Clair. She probably didn't like how her parents portrayed her, so she remade herself in her own image. Perhaps alluding to a child's desire to step out of their parents' shadow and to no longer be tied to an image their parents have of them. After defeating her, Clair puts her arms out into a crucifixion pose as she's impaled by her own creations, because Clair sees herself as a martyr. And because she sought to fix what she thought was her mother's mistaken version of her, Clair wanted others to know that she was a martyr, because what good is martyrdom if no one's there to see it? I'm not saying she's nice, but I'm saying she's doing what is necessary while her parents screw around with family drama while, I remind you, they're at war. So, Clair sees herself as a martyr, and perhaps she is, and she just wants someone to recognize it and lighten her burden. They say that Renoir created her Axon as a giant holding old Lumiere on his shoulders. I think the theme bears out. I think Renoir is the pragmatic one, and he likely understands the burden he's placed on her. But Clair gave Robin the power to slay her Axon. By killing that Axon, which was designed to hold on to the chroma and keep it from getting to the Paintress, by killing it, she was returning the chroma to the Paintress? Or did Clair hate again how her father saw her so much that she didn't care that destroying it was counterproductive? She just wanted it gone. Clair doesn't like her family deciding who she is. She seems like the type of person who rebels against her labels, so both her Axon and her doppelganger needed to die, and suffer respectively. because there was no advantage to her doing this. It wasn't going to bring her family back any sooner. It's petty. It's small. But on the flip side, you could tell she really cares about her family beneath that tough girl facade. At the end of the Endless Tower, Clair will congratulate MAE-MAE and give her a really interesting piece of advice. She tells her to not allow anyone to drag you into their drama. This tells me that Clair is used to being the one to mediate in her parents' drama, and this advice is a warning. If I die, don't become the new me. You won't like it. Again, the martyrdom complex. Clair goes on to say that neither of her parents are adult enough to have the conversation that they need to have. She says it's better to keep them apart until they've dealt with their shit. And instead of dealing with their shit, they drag other people into it, which makes a mess of everything. She says to her sister that your mother would rather lose herself in make-believe instead of face reality. She tells her sister not to make the same mistake. The secret of the endings is buried in this optional dialogue in a side area that you may never even bother with. Do you side with Verso and break the cycle, or do you side with MAE-MAE and continue the sins of your parents? She knows Alicia and what she'd likely do, and it's because she cares for Alicia that she makes this effort to save her. Clair is a powerful presence. She knows she can't tell Alicia what to do, but she knows that she could put the seed of doubt in her head, so that hopefully down the road, Alicia will choose to do the right thing because she'll remember what her sister told her. And again, she says all this like an expert on the subject. And maybe she is a martyr, sacrificing herself so her parents don't lose everything. But I pose a cooler option. She's not a martyr. She's the goddamn lioness of Brittany. This is Jean de Clisson. Let me tell you about this badass. Legend goes that Jean's husband, Olivier, was tricked into coming to see the King of France for a tourney. And while he was there, they kidnapped him, imprisoned him, and later executed him. And do you know what this hooker did? She became a pirate who routinely raided French ships and killed every last man on those vessels and left only one man alive to carry the message to the king. And that message? I'm coming for you, you little bitch. Clair is that woman. She ain't crying over losing Verso. She's out there getting even. If you punch Clair, she's coming back with a bat. If you got a bat, she's got a knife. But if you got a knife, she got a gun. When MAE-MAE and Verso talk near the end of the game, she comments that Clair isn't home. She's most likely out hunting riders down to make them pay for the fire. Yeah, like I said, everyone grieves differently, and Clair decides to get all murdery about it. And okay, she's still a terrible person, but you gotta admit, it isn't these kids' fault that they're like this. Now, having one kid that's effed up in the head, that's fine, you know, no one bats 1,000, right? But two kids, and it's like, you better hope that that third one works out or you're getting busted down to the minors. But if all three of your kids are basket cases, damn, yo, it's time to churn in your jockstrap because you don't need to be screwing up any more lives. In the end, you have to decide if keeping the memory of Verso alive is good for the family or if it's best to put the last part of him to rest so that they can move on with life at their own pace. Throughout this game, the theme of loss and moving on is carried subtly and not so subtly. The motto is, when one falls, we continue. The motto is the theme. The question is it better to let someone grieve or force them to move on? The answer, in the end, is your choice. And therefore, whatever you learn throughout the game, the greater context granted by the endgame side content, whatever you get out of the theme is going to decide the ending for you. But before we bring this thing to a close, what about Aline? Now, let's talk about this putain. I want you to think about this. Aline had the power to recreate her family the way it was before the fire. She recreated Verso without any flaws, but she created painted Alicia with black skin and scars all over her face without her voice. Why the hell did this woman do that? She did it because she probably hates MAE-MAE. MAE-MAE is blamed explicitly for Verso's death. The result of that death were the scars and the lost voice. Aline, the paintress, probably sees that as just punishment for taking away her favorite child. Aline claims, as does Painted Renoir, that all they want to do is spend as long as they can together as a family. Aline could have created Renoir without his memories of the fire, but she didn't. Likely because she wanted Painted Renoir to remember. Maybe she blames him as well. Or maybe she hates him because he shows favor to Alicia. You can see this in everything that Renoir does, both painted and real. And since Aline painted Renoir, that's how she sees him. Where Aline seems to not care for her daughter, Renoir cares deeply. Everything he does is for his girls. Aline doesn't care about her family, and she is just as responsible for these children's pain as anyone else is. In fact, her abandonment of her children is probably the worst thing she could ever do. She is showing her family through her actions that she never really cared for them, and it isn't worth living with them if Verso isn't there to make it tolerable. She'd rather be the queen of her own little world, sacrificing the people who needed her to spend time with the dead. Let's establish some facts. The paintress created those people in Lumiere, a reference to a place they probably lived back in the real world. Now, why do you think she did that? Why did she recreate her family in the painting? Because she wanted to spend the rest of her life with her ideal version of her family in the country or city, whatever the hell Lumiere is, just like they did in the good old days. Aline gave them the personality she believed those family members either deserved or embodied. She gave all those people in Lumiere a life, memories, dreams, hopes, and wants and fears, and she maybe even recreated real people she knew. And when Renoir started siphoning her chroma into the accents, her reaction to that was not to leave, and instead, she chose to sacrifice thousands of lives, potentially, every year. Every year creating new orphans, new mental disorders, new widows, new horrible memories, every year destroying lives. Instead of leaving and dealing with the pain of losing Verso, she preferred to replace him and sacrifice all the small folk, just like the nobility their family appears to be would do in their place. Looks like it's time to sharpen the people's razor, am I right? Because to nobility, they don't see people when they look at you and me. They see tools, something useful, perhaps even valuable, but ultimately replaceable. As far as Aline's impact on her kids, Aline is far worse than Renoir because at least if he was successful, it would be the best thing for his family. While everything about Aline's behavior is irresponsible and selfish and just an aura of hatred aimed straight at her daughter Alicia. Do you know how I know Aline hates her daughter? Because when you first meet her, she sets everyone on fire, which again, how effed up was that? She set everyone on fire except for one person. The only person she cared about, Verso. And notice that Aline starts burning Alicia first, and then starts burning all the people Alicia loves and cares about. And what part of Alicia did she choose to set on fire first? Did it start on her arms, her legs? No. It started on her face. What a mean, petty little woman she is. Verso sees all this and knowing what his mother is like and how much she hates Alicia, grabs her and pulls her close to him, setting himself on fire, probably alluding to what happened on that day in the manor. Aline only stops burning her daughter when it is clear that she's hurting her fake son. She wanted her daughter to suffer, her real daughter, but not her favored fake son, the one who was supposed to carry on the dynasty. Remember that in nobility, women were traded to other families like currency, but the boys were considered valuable in a different way. They're supposed to carry on the family name. But what about Mael? They say that she was responsible for Verso's death, and it was because of her incompetence. And Clair was all too eager to remind her of that so coldly and nonchalantly. The only person who is likable in all this is Verso, and that's because he died before he could become contemptible. See, I have a theory. I think that we identify more with the underdog because we can easily identify with their particular struggle. After all, there's not many of us so perfect that we've never made a mistake in our lives. I mean, I am, but I'm really special. We think to ourselves, that woman, how could she do that to her children? And this is true, but also, think about how you'd feel. You'd like to think that you'd react differently, but you'll never know unless it happens. Everyone grieves differently, and if you've never lost anything you cared about that much, you can't know. Perhaps Aline would have learned to forgive Alicia if she had been given the time to grieve, or if she had someone to grieve with who could talk her through it. This is a contemptible cast of characters, but it only feels that way upon close examination. It's the kind of story that gets better every time you think about it. The fact that people can identify with either of these characters is a testament to how well these characters' motivations are written. A character is only as good as the audience's ability to put themselves in character shoes. If the audience thinks to themselves, yeah, I'd probably do the same thing. You know, you have a relatable character. This is a game and a story that will stick with me for a very long time, just like Disco Elysium. When a game is good, that's one thing. You'll remember the gameplay, the fun you had, and maybe that makes you play again in the future. But when a story is this memorable, you don't need to play through it again, because you couldn't forget the story even if you tried. But since this game is fun and well written, it's a game I'm probably going to revisit often. Hey everybody, I got a couple announcements to make, so I'm going to try and keep it short. I don't know if you noticed throughout the span of this video that I kind of started out like this, you know, like big old fat gut, and then by the time the video finished, I looked like this. Okay, that's because I lost like 25 pounds in the time that it took to make this video. That is not a joke. I've been doing these fitness streams on Twitch where, you know, when certain things happen, I then have to do some reps, and when people donate, I gotta do reps. I've racked up a lot of reps because during this video I haven't been able to actually do those streams, but I've been working out. So anyway, I'm losing a lot of weight, and the other piece of self-improvement news that I am currently partaking in is I'm going back to school. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I'm going back to school. I know. This is kind of bananas to me too. I am going for engineering at my age. Lots of math. You want to see how much math actually? All this, like this entire freaking book, and I've only been back at school for 2 weeks. I haven't done math since I was this high. No, I'm just kidding. I haven't done math since I was like in high school. But I know it was a really long time ago. I don't know if you could tell I'm pretty old. I know I aged really well. Huh? Yeah. So yeah, so that's happening. But there is a self-inflicted pickle, I will say. I'm going back to school, which means the production of these videos had a few hours shaved off of them, right? So like my schedule is pretty hectic because I'm full-time school right now, and Monday through Thursday is school, and the amount of homework they give you is I can't do anything for those 4 days. But then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I work on the videos. That's even why I was even able to get this thing out in the first place. But the thing is, YouTube, I don't know what's going on, but the ad revenue sucks now. Like it's not sustainable or survivable. And the only way that I can keep going is on Patreon, Subscribestar, and my second channel memberships. Now, let me go ahead and give you the kind of quick pitch here. If you support me on those platforms, not only are you going to be keeping the channel alive, but I'm going to be producing more of this exact kind of content, very focused, because I'm in school now, and it's making me realize that I used to do a lot of things very half-assed, right? And I am no longer going to be doing that. So when I do these scripts, they're going to be way more structured. The videos are going to be more laser-focused as I go. And if you really liked this style of video, then support me on Patreon, Subscribestar, or the second channel. Okay, because it's going to keep me going. Without it, I don't know. I don't know if I can keep going with this. I get a job at Walmart or something. I don't know. So support me if you can. If not, I love you anyway. And I just want to put the vibes out there. You guys be safe. It's getting to be a crazy world, man. And I love you, and I want what's best for you, okay? So go out there, put out the positive energy, all right? I hope that the future is brighter for everyone, and we all get what we want in some way. You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go. Go on. Bye.